catch on.
That's the fun part of this.
Good evening. I'd like to go ahead and call the school board meeting to feel better. Feel better. I'd like to call the school board meeting of Tuesday, January 15th to order. If you would, please go ahead and silence your cell phones. Since I'm the one who usually forgets. We begin our meetings normally with an invocation, which will be led tonight by School Board Member Ricky Booth, with a Pledge of Allegiance led by Eugenia Rolando, followed by the National Anthem, which will be sung by the choir students from Toho High School under the direction of Janelle Kaufman. Our mission statement will be read by Hillary DeLuca, principal at Eastlake Elementary School, and our translation service will be offered by Belinda Reyes. If you please all rise with me for the invocation.
Sure. Please bow with me. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we ask tonight as we come before you at this meeting that you provide wisdom, discernment, guidance to all those sitting at this dais. And we ask your blessings as you have given to us in 2018. We ask your blessings again for a safe and prosperous 2019. It's in your Son's name I pray. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's good. That's
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
The mission statement.
And our mission statement is inspiring all learners to reach their highest potential as responsible, productive citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Luke.
Good afternoon. My name is Belinda Reyes, and I'm here to offer translation services. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Belinda Reyes y estoy aquí para proveer servicios de traducción.
Thank you very much. Bring us to board comments. Ms. Castillo, start with you. Do you have any?
I do. I just wanted to thank Miss Dana Schaefer and her team for helping me along with my, I visited Celebration High School over the weekend. I was able to experience a class over there. Mrs. Paulo and Mrs. Barth were hosting us, and I just wanted to thank both Mrs. Barth and Mrs. Paulo, as well as Miss Dana Schaefer, for helping me with that. And also, if Miss Barth, if you're listening, I hope the baby's doing okay. She came in just so that I can experience her class, so I really appreciated that.
Great.
Yeah, just briefly, those were very nice comments, Ms. Castillo, and I just want to say that was a very nice performance by the Toho High School, I guess their choir, yes, by the Toho High School choir. Excellent. Very well done. Thank you.
Agreed. Mr. Booth?
I'm not.
Why, sir? Yeah. Dr. Pace?
I would only add to Mr. Soto's comments in that Janelle Kaufman, the director of the chorus at Tohopokalega High School, is a graduate of the Osceola County School System. And we are very proud to see her grow and lead and help bring out that great talent of those students. So congratulations, Janelle, and thank you.
I hope she's still in the lobby or out the door. Hope they haven't left yet. No, she heard that. Brings us to our presentations. Dr. Respis, Celebrate Literacy Week proclamation.
And I have a guest with me tonight. I want to call up Cameron Geibel from a third grader from Eastlake and her mama. Come here, babe. Let's see if we can. See if we can. There, that is perfect.
2 steps, and she's taller than you, Dr.
Proclamation. Celebration Literacy Week, Florida. Whereas the school district of Osceola County, Florida has the goal of guiding every student in the K-12 system to read at or above grade level, and making literacy the priority of every citizen in Osceola County, and whereas change in the literacy culture of our schools will enable students to be successful in the 21st century from pre-kindergarten to post-secondary by raising expectations of teachers and students, and whereas involvement in the literacy programs and projects increased through schools and communities awareness. Such programs, whereas promoting the enjoyment of reading for all ages, children to adults, increases literacy rates, and whereas parents, families, neighbors, and mentors play a crucial role in helping children become successful independent readers. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the School Board of Osceola County hereby declare the week of January 28th through February 1st Celebrate Literacy Week, Florida, this 15th day of January 2019.
Woo!
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Weishauer to approve with a second by Mr. Booth. Board, any comments or discussion?
Briefly, yes, reading, very, very important. There could be such a thing as too much reading. I'm trying to cut back.
We're hoping you do.
Depends on what you're reading, Mr. Soto.
Well, with the book recommendations he sends me, I'm hoping you cut back too, by the way.
Hey, those are good recommendations, all right? But yeah, no, I'm very proud of the school district and, our community that does take reading seriously. I tell you, there's just no better way to experience the world than reading because it's easy, it's vast, and unfortunately, we cannot really learn everything on our own. Life is only so short, and there's only, so much opportunity that we have. So reading is what really amplifies and gives us all those experiences that we cannot have personally, but through others.
And I just want to thank the reader. She did an unbelievable job. I promise you, I could not read like that in front of an audience still today. So very, very impressive.
Very well.
Great job.
Great job.
Any other comments, Board? No, I have a motion for approval by Mr. Weishauer, second by Mr. Booth. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Brings us to recognition of PBIS Model School. Ms. Ureka.
Thank you. Tonight, I would like to recognize 4 of our PBIS schools. When I came to the school district and took over PBIS here at the district level a couple years ago, one of my goals was to increase the fidelity of implementation at the sites. There are certain criteria that the Florida PBIS project, which is housed in the University of South Florida, they require for schools to become model schools. And looking at that criteria, myself along with my leadership team, we decided that we wanted to raise the bar. We wanted to make it a little bit more rigorous in order to become a model school. So we increased the the criteria. Not only is it just filling out forms, having a reduction in referrals, but it's also involvement in training from administration, looking at your attendance and looking at academic data, as well as just the climate on the school campus. So I'm very happy to say that there are 4 schools that rose to that challenge. I even have one of those schools that has even challenged me to increase and have a platinum level. So right now, PBIS has a bronze, silver, and gold level, so they want it to be platinum. So we're working on that. And I am happy to say that our lead in raising the bar, the project, the Florida PBIS project from USF, has actually decided that they want to really look at how they choose model schools. So they're in the process of upping their standards, and they've asked me to be on that committee to raise the standard so it becomes statewide, not just here in Osceola County. So I'm very proud of these schools. I'm also grateful to the leadership I have with our assistant superintendents, Dr. Reinhardt, Mr. Allen, and Dr. Respis, that always are very supportive, and then Dr. Pace and Dr. Fritz and Mr. Phelps as well, that are always very supportive as far as giving input and guidance as to how our direction goes regarding discipline and that the campus's climate. So I would like to ask if Dr. Pace, if you would like to come down, and Mr. Thacker, if you would like to come down and present some certificates to these schools. So I have some representatives from the schools, so if I could have them come, please. My first school is Neptune Elementary School, and they received a gold model school status. And I have Shannon Mahoney, the assistant principal, and Chanel Wishar, the counselor at the school. I also have Parton Settlement Elementary that received a gold model school status. Casey Corbett is their principal. She's here to receive the award. My next school is Denjon Middle School, and they received a silver status. If you all could stay up here so we could take a picture. We got to do pictures. And this is Sue Haley Dolan. She's the assistant principal. And then Parkway Middle School is the gold model school status, and I have Megan Gould and Maria Gill, one of their deans. Thank you.
That's one of my famous comments.
They won't give me my glasses, so the meeting is recessed.
Yeah.
There we go. Where are we here? Dr. Pace, administrative appointments.
Yes, sir. Board members, I am excited tonight to be able to complete the administrative team at Kissimmee Middle School. First of all, we have with us Miss Jane Mabra. Let me go the other way around. Okay. Apologize. If I could invite Mr. Frankie Franceschi up to the podium, please. Board members, Mr. Franceschi has been a teacher at Horizon Middle School and currently serves as the dean at Horizon Middle School. Prior to his career here in our school district, he served in the Army National Guard. He received his bachelor's degree in social science education from the University of Central Florida and a master's degree in educational leadership from Stetson University, as well as business administration and concentration in project management from the Keller Graduate School of Management at DeVry University. And I'm pleased to recommend Mr. Franceschi as our 10-month assistant principal at Kissimmee Middle School.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Booth with a second by Mr. Weishire. Board, any further comments or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank
Good luck
you
to
very
you.
much. I appreciate it. All right. I would really like to thank my family. My wife and son are in the back. My mom is in the back as well. Before I even thought about being a teacher, I was a student at Parkway Middle School, graduated Ponciana High School, and I had teachers who invested their time in me and helped me actually conceive that I could be an educator as well. And so I'm very grateful for this district and the opportunities they've given me as a teacher, a dean, now assistant principal. I've worked for Mike Allen and Ms. Henninger and Mr. Gould and Ms. Jurgens and countless other leaders, and they've inspired me and taught me a lot, and hopefully I can bring those skills when I work in my new position with Ms. Rolando and Ms. Mabra at Kissimmee Middle. I'm real excited. Thank you for the opportunity. I also want to thank my Stetson cohort, who's also here, and my dean team who are here as well.
Yes, nice.
But thank you. I really
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
And Board, if I could just say, this is a great example of the work that we've done to provide these kinds of master's degree programs and leadership development right here in our district. And Frankie shared with us yesterday that he grew up in the same community as the Kissimmee Middle School area. So we're really excited for the personal touch he's going to bring to his work there.
And I appreciate the pocket square game. Good job.
And next, if I could invite Ms. Mabra to come forward. I apologize for causing that little delay. Ms. Mabra has been an assistant principal in the 10-month role at Kissimmee Middle School, and she has agreed with your permission board to take on the 12-month assistant principal role, taking on those responsibilities of the master schedule and guidance, and I know it's going to be just a great team to provide Ms. Rolando the support that she needs to keep Kissimmee Middle School moving forward and upward in the direction that Mr. Whedon has built.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Weishauer with a second by Ms. Castillo. Board, any other further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Great job. Congratulations.
Thank you. I want to thank the board, Mr. Allen, Dr. Pace, for your constant support and trust in me, and I plan on doing everything in my power to support Principal Rolando and make it a great vision, carry out the vision of the school for students to achieve. Thank you.
Great job. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This brings us to our public comment portion of the meeting. I do not have any requests for a public comment. If anybody does, there's still a moment to get in. There should be some yellow sheets in the back. If not, we will close that portion and move forward with our agenda modifications. And I know that we have two blue sheeted items. We have one. Dr. Pace, do you want to cover those?
Yes, sir. We have, under facilities, item 12.06 would be an approval for the service agreement for lighting service with Kissimmee Utility Authority for the Neo City Academy new construction project. And as Mr. Clint shared with you, board members, it's important that we expedite this decision in order to make sure that we have the lighting in place in time for Neo City to open, because the Neo City community agreement does require a specialized type of pole that has to be special ordered. And then, under our school board, Mr. Kreppenbacher's attorney, you have item 13.02, which is an approval of the order overturning and vacating a final order from our December 5th, 2018 meeting.
I move for adoption of the agenda with the modifications.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Booth, second by Ms. Castillo, to approve the agenda with the two blue sheeted modifications. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Brings us board to our informational items. And graduation rate information, Dr. Fritz and Dr. Reinhardt.
Before we get started, I'd like to say hello to a few wonderful people. There are 4 people here from my class last semester at UCF, and they are here to see a school board meeting. So, welcome.
Sorry to hear that.
I guess they got tired of seeing me do this enough, so they thought they'd come and see me do a presentation today.
I hope it's all you thought it would be when you leave here.
It's riveting.
Hope you're not crying.
Well, we're very excited. This is a good presentation. This is a happy presentation. When we talk about graduation rates in K-12, that is the ultimate achievement of our students. It's a promise we make to students when they enter kindergarten. We say to them that we believe in them and their families, and that we're going to provide what it is they need to launch in life. And that graduation ceremony represents that. It's not just a high school thing. It's truly a collective process from elementary, middle, and high school principals and teachers. It's the support that students receive from guidance counselors, from paraprofessionals in ESE and ELL classes. And it absolutely symbolizes the launch to adulthood. So we're going to go through this a little bit because it is great news. And if you look at this first slide, the bottom line represents the state averages for the last 3 years. That line across the top, or the middle, that says Osceola, shows that we've increased over the last 3 years from 82% in 15-16 to 86.3% to 89.3%. And what's really cool is our rankings against our peers has increased as well. If you look at the Central Florida districts that we compare ourselves to, there are only 2 districts that are ahead of us at this point, and that's Indian River and Seminole County. We are ahead of Orange County. We are ahead of Brevard County. 3 years ago, we were not. This next slide tells a story. One of the reasons I'm so proud of our school district is when we set our minds to do something, we build it to last. We're very systemic in our approach. We don't look for quick fixes. If you look at this first slide and you look back at 08, 09, up till 10, you'll see that the numbers were in the 70s. I want to share with you that because Dr. Pace and I were here, and so was Dr. Reinhardt at that time. We had some problems with our data. We were not reporting clean data. So we worked on procedures to make sure that we were getting the credits that we should have gotten. As we went on to 10, 11, and 12, we started developing our impact and our credit recovery programs and really added the fidelity to those programs so that when students went, the credits that they earned in those recovery efforts were legitimate. After we got going on that, we realized it was really better to be more proactive and to have less students needing credit recovery programs. So we started focusing in getting them to be successful in their courses for the first time, and that's where we put a lot of emphasis towards our instructional practices in the schools. When we got to 15, 16, and 17, we're at 82%. We're thinking, how do we go higher? Students sometimes get roadblocked with the FSA. And I'm going to be honest with you on that they've taken the FSA or a state assessment for 10 or 11 years at that point. And perhaps they've experienced some unsuccess. And during that time, they've gotten beaten down. And so we looked at other opportunities for students to have a meaningful assessment. And we came to this board and we said, the SAT is an assessment that is recognized across the nation. It's an internationally recognized assessment. And we asked you to come forward and help us with that. I'm very happy to say that last year when we did that for our seniors that were at risk, that were not able to meet the FSA requirement, 42% of those seniors absolutely met the requirement and walked across that stage. 70% of our juniors met that requirement. It's an examination that meets that concordance score, but they can also use it to put on their transcripts. FSA scores do not go on transcripts. If you look at this slide really talks about the comparison of district and charters and districts and charters separately. The good news is we showed increases in our district-run schools as well as our charters. If you look at that, our column in gray on the end shows that our district schools are 91% of our graduation rate, which is very high. Our charter schools are up to 64%. They're not exactly where we want them yet, but they're showing improvement over the last 3 years. But I do want to focus in on that 91% because that's very impressive. All means all, and we say that phrase a lot. And you can't discount our subgroups. In Osceola County, 42% of our students are either EOL or ESE. And when you look at this data, it shows that our students that are in our district-run schools as well as our charters that are in subgroups, whether they're ESE, EOL, or free or reduced lunch, are beating the state averages in graduation rates. I'm extremely excited when we look at this next slide. This next slide shows, look where we were at in 13-14 where our students with disabilities, and look where we're at for 17-18. That was a 22% jump for our students with disabilities. And I'm going to share with you some of the reasons I believe that to be. We came to you and asked you several years ago to help us support our ESE students. We decreased this teacher ratio in elementary schools. We provided a continuum of services so that we could pull students out and do small group work with them at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. Folks, this is your results. When we do that, and we do, again, going back to being systemic, what really works at the elementary, middle, and high level has a lasting impact, and that's those graduation rates. At this point, Dr. Reinhardt's going to go over some individual school successes because we certainly have a lot to celebrate.
Thank you, Dr. Fritz. Obviously, this data is very exciting. I'm so glad I can be here to help share that with you. As you look at this 3-year trend data, you can see the state and district averages across the top and our schools listed as we go. Very excited as you look at those trends from the last 3 years. You see a lot of green over there in that far right-hand column showing the percent of change. It's excellent. And we have increased, I think something to point out is that we have increased more than the state. So when you see over the 3 years, the state has had an increase of 5.4%, and as a district, we've increased 7.3%. So they're chasing us, not the other way around. Some very specific school highlights. Dr. Fritz talked about those subgroup and how important it is, all means all, that we want to look at all of our students. Some highlights for individual schools would be Harmony High School. Their ELL graduation rate increased by 12.9, almost 13%. Gateway High School's ELL graduation rate increased by just a little over 10%. Point Siena High School, when you look at the students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, their graduation rate has increased by over 7%. Osceola High School had students with disabilities, their graduation rate increasing by 22.6, close to 23%. That's amazing. And Point Siena High School's graduation rate also increased by 10.5%. So looking at that subgroup, making sure that we're not leaving any students behind, that we look at it in all sorts of different ways is very important. The schools have done an amazing job of tracking data, and I think Dr. Fritz alluded to that we're really taking very careful and close attention, looking at this all the time, more frequently examining that data, not waiting until the end of the year, but really watching all this all year long. This chart is to give you information about the non-graduates. So this is also very important that we look at so we know what our rate of kids are that are graduating. As you look in the middle there where Osceola County is, you can see some really special things. First of all, our percent of dropouts. These are the students that aren't necessarily going to stay. We have students that get like a diploma after 5 years or they miss that initial 4-year cohort. These kids have dropped out of school, and we are happy to say that that has kind of consistently been below 2%. And again, of course, we're always trying to make that number go down even further. Our percentage, our certificate of completion is another area that it's really important to look at. These are students who cannot qualify to get a diploma because either their GPA is below a 2.0 or they did not pass one of the required state assessment test, either the FSA, ELA, or the math EOC, the algebra EOC. And so we look at that very carefully, and you can see that that is now down to 2.5%. So that's really important because students need that diploma. That's just, as Dr. Fritz said, is the launch to the next step. They can do very little with their certificate of completion, so it's really important they get that diploma. And you can see a few years ago, our special diploma was really an area of real concern that we were overrepresented with kids getting special diplomas of our ESE students, and of course that we're essentially eliminating that. So some really great things to compare there and see. On this next slide, again, you're going to see our Got College initiative. So what are our kids doing after high school if this graduation rate really is that launching place? And you can see that trend data for Osceola County. We've had a percent of change over the years. We've really put some emphasis on this, making sure our kids have post-secondary plans. We had a 13% increase in this since 2011. The state increase has been 5.5%. So we are really working on closing that gap. It's important to note that this data comes from a DOE source, and it's 2 years lag data. So it's really not showing what I believe would be our strongest initiatives that we've been doing in the last few years. We don't really have that data yet. We do track it ourselves, but the importance of this data is that it's consistently being reported exactly the same to DOE, so we want to keep that same metric. We're very hopeful of what it's going to look like in the next 2 years, that we have every reason to believe that we're going to catch or surpass that state. Yeah, Mr. Thacker.
Do you know what the percentage going to school is, including outside of Florida public universities? Do we have that?
That's,
I don't think.
we don't have that now. That's part of our challenge. Right now, Florida captures this. We do have our graduation plan, so we have, Mr. Cook has worked up for us, like for this year, the kids that have committed and those who say that they're going to go. So we have 2 different metrics that we can give that to you, but that's one of the flaws, that we're not able to capture private schools in this, and we're not able to capture schools out of the state.
Thank you.
Sorry, no, I'm sorry.
That's a good question.
And that's a great question. And that we are trying to capture that data ourselves through some of the data that we're capturing in Naviance, so that we will get more confirmed plans. By the end of the year, we will have more specific data on that. And I think that this just shows the great work that we've been doing to remove the barriers for kids to go to college, things like our Valencia transition coaches, the field trips that we take to the different technical schools and our local colleges, and really tracking the data really shows this initiative. This data is showing, again, just in another fashion, our comparison to our Central Florida corridor for you. We know that that's always important. Okay, so we're doing well, we're increasing. How do we compare to everybody else? And you'll see a couple of different things here. First of all, when you look at that percent of change, I think it's really important to note that Osceola County has had a 13.3% change from 2011, and that's the largest growth of all of those counties that we compare ourselves
We've
to.
actually gone from 62nd in the state to 27th in that time.
Awesome.
Wow.
And that's the end of our presentation, unless you have
62nd
some.
to 22nd?
Yeah,
Yes.
62nd to 27th.
27.
All right, let me start.
Go ahead.
I'm not good at gushing. I'm going to leave you guys to that part, all right? I don't want to get into all of that. This is just wonderful news. I got elected in 2012, and one of the first things that my research and what I was learning about what our metrics were at the time was that 6 out of 10 of our high school graduates did not go on to a public college or university. And it was around that time that we took a focus in this community toward changing that. And this graph here on page 10 just tells the whole story. Well, it doesn't tell the whole story, it's just the flashpoint, but everything you just spoke about, all of the efforts of everyone, Dr. Pace, Melba, Dr. Pace following, Dr. Luciano, Dr. Pace following, you folks that were here before and after coming together, just a shifting culture and seeing that we're going to be preparing our students for college and education with the options always that fits the individual, whether they're going to go into careers and training and technical. So we've always looked at the whole package, but we also recognize that we were not where we're at in making sure that our students knew about these things going out there, because a big part of it is knowing, and then the other part of it is believing that that could be you, that regardless of everything or with all of your experiences, your family and everything into account, that you could go ahead and decide in your future to go to university, to go to a college, be able to afford it, and open that possibility and make it real. That's what the district has done. That's what everybody's got together, and this shows the success that we had so far. The other slide, which is the last one, showing the 13% increase, where during that time the state is only 5.5. Again, it just shows that that took a lot of effort, a lot of hard work in believing in your students, making your students and those families believe in themselves. And, you know, really, right now with 54% and going up, it's just it's an amazing accomplishment for this community. And I congratulate you, you know, Dr. Pace and your leadership team and everybody in the school district. You should be very proud of this.
You did a great job gushing.
I was going to say,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Oh, all right. Well,
That was a great job, Christian.
okay. Those are my words.
Anybody else?
Congratulations.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
add much to what Kelvin said.
Thank
Did
you
a
for
good,
all your hard work.
Perfectly stated, Mr. Soto. Great job, guys.
great job.
Thank you, thank you.
Hugely
It's a
important.
village.
Yes.
Got to find a better quote.
No, that's a perfect vote, actually.
Brings us to the investment performance review by PFM. So let's come forward. Richard?
Oh, yes.
Up a little bit. Good evening. My name is Richard Pengelly. I'm with PFM. With me is also my colleague Jason Human. Both of us work on the school district's portfolio. I'm going to talk a little bit about the economic environment that we're in, and Jason will walk through some of the details in the portfolio. This is a report related to the quarter ending 9/30/2018. Since then, there's been a lot going on in the market, and we'll probably delve into a lot more of that when we come back to talk about the next quarter, but I'll try and touch on some of it as we go through here. So, for much of 2018, the whole story was driven by the Fed. Actually, since 2015, the whole story really has been driven by the Fed and its steady program of raising short-term interest rates, which has directly benefited the school district's portfolio, which is invested in short-term investments. Backdrop throughout the third quarter continued to be the same, with really strong economic fundamentals here in the U.S. Good growth. Actually, if you look at GDP, which measures overall economic growth, the second and third quarter were the highest we'd seen in 4 years. If you look at the employment picture, continues to be very rosy, what we call a very tight labor market, meaning that there are significant and plentiful jobs available. I think at several points throughout the end of the year here, there have actually been more job openings out there than there actually are unemployed people. And you just really have a geographic and skills mismatch. So, you know, compared to where we were 10 years ago, this is a great place to be, sort of a Goldilocks type of environment. So against that backdrop, the Fed, of course, has continued its pace of raising interest rates. In 2018, it raised interest rates roughly every 3 months, with the most recent one occurring in the middle of December, so a few weeks ago. For the calendar year 2018, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates by a full percentage point. I think when we calculated your earnings through 9/30/2018, you had generated approximately $1.6 million in the portfolio. So again, as I mentioned, you all are benefiting from this rate increase. So that's sort of where we are today. Looking out forward into the rest of the year, in December, the Fed reduced its outlook for a number of different metrics, whereas it had before projected it might continue raising rates as much as another point this year. It pulled back on that and said that it only thinks it can do 0.5 percentage point. If you look at other market measures, the market generally is starting to take a view that the good times really can't last much longer, and that 2018 or 2019 is going to be the year that we start seeing a shift in the interest rate environment. And Jason will cover some of this, but we're starting to take measures in the portfolio, slight shifts in the strategy to anticipate those potential changes this year. Now, as a general matter, by design, your portfolio is invested in very safe investments. So despite all the volatility you see on TV and everything that's going on in the equity markets, your portfolio are the instruments that those investors are flocking and fleeing to when they're worried about tech sector, when they're worried about growth in China. They start buying the instruments that you own, which increases the value of your investment. So, as with all school districts, safety is the primary driver of the investment strategy, and then we start looking at yield and all those other things. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason to go into the details on your portfolio.
Thank you, Richard. Good evening, everyone. These next slides here are extracted from the quarterly investment performance report that we deliver to Ms. Graber and her team and discuss on a regular basis with the rest of her staff. So this first page is a summary page. I won't go into all the detail here, but I'll hit some of the highlights. Your operating portfolio as of September 30th, total market value, $103.7 million. Accrued interest for the quarter, $381,000. The yield that the portfolio is currently producing, yield at cost, 1.88%. As Richard mentioned, as interest rates have risen, that number has also gone up quarter over quarter from previous presentations that you've seen from us. At the bottom there, average credit quality AA. As Richard mentioned, very safe portfolio. You can see the credit quality, which is made up on the pie chart on the upper left. Majority of the portfolio, 76% in AA+, along the top right to the lower rated sectors, the lowest being BBB+. Very diversified portfolio. The pie chart on the right-hand side, you'll see more than half of this portfolio, 56% in U.S. Treasury securities. Corporates, federal agencies, mortgage backs, and municipals round out the remaining sectors that we invest on your behalf. The bottom there, very short portfolio as far as maturities. Most of the portfolio inside of 3 years, with the concentration of maturities in the 1 to 2 year range, so that if there ever were an urgent cash need, the positions being short in duration like that, we'd be able to liquidate them at your request. Next slide, some more numbers here, but the important numbers. Performance, total return over the previous quarter and remaining time periods. So if you look at the current quarter column, you'll see your portfolio along the top. Along the bottom is the benchmark. So for the third quarter ending September, your portfolio returned 0.36% compared to the benchmark of 0.2%. So solid outperformance of 0.16%. As you go across the right-hand side, highlighting the 1 year for your ending 9/30, 0.37% versus only 0.06% for the benchmark. Again, continued performance all the way back through inception for all time periods. Next slide shows what we've done in your portfolio over the previous 4 quarters. I'll kind of focus on the 2 most recent ones, being September and June 30th. You'll see the majority of the change in the U.S. Treasury sector versus the federal agency sector. As we've increased our Treasury allocation in your portfolio, as we've seen the spreads of the agencies decrease over time, we've chosen to go into Treasuries as a bit of a safer option for not much of a downside in return. We also included the capital outlay sales tax revenue bond portfolio here. Just some quick highlights on this portfolio. Total market value, $45.9 million. We keep this portfolio much shorter than your operating portfolio, so we can pay out expenses as they come due. So you'll see the duration in this portfolio only at 0.57 years, very short, still very high credit quality. Yield at cost slightly lower than the other portfolio. You would expect that being shorter than the operating portfolio at 1.46%. A little bit different sector makeup on this portfolio. Again, very liquid, so we're keeping everything in federal agencies and corporate notes in this portfolio. The final 3 slides make up our compliance chart or our asset allocation chart. What we've done here is we've hard-coded your investment policy into this model represented by the gold lines. Those are your policy limitations for each sector allowed by your investment policy. And then the blue is simply how much of those sectors we are utilizing in our investment process. So you'll see on the far right column, all sectors in compliance. with plenty of room to go in majority of the sectors if we do decide to make some strategic allocation shifts with our investments. Remaining 2 pages represent every security in your portfolio, the same compliance check. As you look down the right-hand column for every security, we are in fact in compliance with your issuer limitations per your investment policy. And that concludes our prepared remarks. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any question?
No questions.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Sorry Jay's not here to ask you something. Sterling silver prices in. That's right. Next item is the monthly business advisory meeting. That's in our packet. We have the information on health insurance trust and the Center for Family Health. Kim?
Yes, sir. You have in your board packet this evening the November of 2018 financial report from Gallagher. I did make you aware of when we were reviewing the October report last month that the November report had just come in, and we were seeing that the costs had gone up over the October month. It looks like for some reason there was a lag in those claims being filed with Cigna or something, but if you average the two, it's pretty much right in line with where things had been. But it'll be interesting to see how the month of December actually looks whenever those when that report comes in. I looked, but it did not come in today, so I'm not able to share that with you. Some additional, the center information, you heard a little bit of this afternoon in the workshop, but at this point, we have avoided, or our patients that are using the Center for the Employee Health have saved just over $2 million now and avoided co-pays for prescriptions and for the office visits as well. So continue to see that. And then we have the results of their survey that they do each month following that. One other item that I received some information at the end of November. The center started seeing anybody that called in on a daily basis, basically. If you called in and they would make you, and you wanted to be seen, they would make an appointment for you. At the end of the day, with no guarantees of how long you may have to wait, but they did make that commitment. Since they've instituted that at the end of November, so basically for the entire month of December, they've seen a total of 805 just basically walk-in same day patients. So that's had a huge impact on the services that are being provided. So again, for the question that keeps coming up about wait times and that kind of thing, the month of December will be interesting to see what the results of that are. But it's interesting. People are calling in. Sometimes they were so sick that they had already stayed home, so they're actually making appointments in the middle of the day where there were appointments available. So they're getting people in there, and then again at the end of the day if they need to do that as well. And one other thing, I don't know if you saw the email that Dr. Pace put out about the e-care program for the month of January. Our employees will not have a copay for that for those e-care services. So that's something they're doing kind of in coordination with their name change to Advent Health, just kind of to draw some attention to that program. But that is a service that will be available just for the month of January, but it'll be available to all of our employees only. Any questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I promised Mr. DeBoard I'd be very well behaved for his presentation. So I honored my word, sir.
That's right, you did.
Good job. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Brings us to our regular agenda for our regular facilities.
Chairman.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve 12.07 under facilities.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Soto with a second by Mr. Weishauer to approve item 12.07. Board, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign, motion carries 5-0. Excuse me. Brings us to attorneys' legal reports and issues.
Yes, members of the board, the first item, we have a rule challenge. Thank you very much. We have a unadopted rule challenge, which I'll go to more in depth, but I'm in need of a closed session it is called Brett Palmy, Carrie Palmy, Allison Palmy, Christopher Palmy versus the School District of Osceola County, Florida, Department of Administrative Hearings, case number 18-5971. The closed session would be the 5 school board members, the superintendent, myself, and the court reporter. At the end of the session, it'll be transcribed and kept, and at the conclusion of the litigation, that closed session becomes public. If somebody wanted to read the transcript, the only things we can talk about are litigation strategy and/or settlement. But this involves effectively an effort to modify how students can go play at schools, and would, we believe, significantly disrupt the athletic program. We have correspondingly started a rulemaking process to adopt a rule, and I'll take you through in detail everything in the closed session.
So tonight, we do not need to, we
No
do
vote
not
on
need to
this.
act on 13.01.
No, I just by law have to announce it
Sure.
at this session in order to have it.
Okay.
The second item, 13.02, is a blue sheet item which approves the order overturning and vacating the final order in a discipline case which lets us reconcile the student has left the district, and it resolves a technical issue that occurred in the underlying case.
I'll make a motion to approve 13.02 as submitted.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Soto with a second by Mr. Booth on item 13.02. Board, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Like sign, motion carries 5-0.
The final item I need to discuss with you is a closed session after the next board meeting involving the Osceola County School Board versus Trade Logistics Aviation Authority, State of Florida Department of Administrative Hearing, case number 18-6777. The only people in that meeting would be the board members, the superintendent, myself, and the court reporter, and the same rules would apply that I just explained for the prior one. I want to put on the record, we had a hearing a week ago Friday in which the lawyer for trade logistics, myself, and the state administrative law judge. The statute requires and says you shall have a hearing in 60 days. We're ready to rock and roll on our side. The lawyer for trade logistics said he would need at least 5 or 6 months to conduct discovery, and since the statute was designed to protect them, which I thought was a rather liberal interpretation, they were waiving it, and the hearing officer said, fine, you two get together. He advised me, and we filed, this past week we had to get together, and he advised me he would not be ready until June. So we gave the hearing officer 2 different weeks in June where we could have the hearing. I put that in the record because it's very important that the record reflect this school district was prepared to have the hearing on what the superintendent and staff had identified. We did not ask that matter be continued. I didn't object. I mean, if that's what he wanted, he was fine. So I will brief you in that closed meeting more about facts I need to discuss with you in private.
Very good. That concludes your...
That concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Dr. Pace?
Yes, sir, just a couple of things, board members. Just as a reminder, we have the legislative delegation meeting on Thursday. Mr. Boyd and the team prepared a draft of legislative...
Can we talk about this a little bit?
Please, I hope you will. I don't know if you want to do it under new business or board member comments, but...
I was going to do it under new business.
Okay,
but if
perfect. But I do need your discussion on that and feedback. Once we have clarity, then, Dana's team will prepare a document that would be suitable for taking to Tallahassee, sharing with representatives in our legislature, those types of things. Also, just a couple of things. Had sent you an email last week regarding a strategic planning retreat. We do have one on the calendar for July, but because we are at the end of this strategic plan, I don't think we can wait that long to really have some time for the 6 of us to have in-depth discussion about where you want to go. Okay. You may not be finished with all of your stakeholder and community meetings, but I think you'll be finished with many of them, so that you should have, hopefully after today's session as well, some input, some ideas, some direction that you want to provide to me, so I can take that to my team in drafting a strategic plan. Once we have everybody's input on when you're available for that retreat, then we'll get that officially scheduled. And then finally, we received an email today from Tina Pinkinson with FSBA regarding master board training. Because we only have one new member to the team, in order to maintain your master board certification, it would only require one 7-hour session with the staff from FSBA to help us in our team building, communication, those types of things as we have done before. I just need direction from the board as to whether or not you want to do that. And if so, I'll work with Tina and Tanya and calendars to try to get it scheduled. If not, I'll let her know one way or the other.
I think since we have the FSBA president-elect on our board, that we probably should.
I'll second that.
I would just say we need all the help we can get with Mr. Booth on this board, so I'm in favor.
I will let Tina know then. Kelvin and Terry, you're in agreement that we want to do this?
Yeah, I'll talk to you in the sidebar with regards to dates, but yes, I'm definitely up for it.
Okay, great. Then I will let Tina know that we do want to continue and we'll work on schedules. That's all I have, sir.
Oh, yeah? Okay, board, if, I think everybody has got the draft of the legislative issues. I don't know if everybody has had a chance to go through these, but it's from some discussions we've all had, so do want to make sure we're comfortable with what is on here. Is this supposed to be in a particular order?
This was just in the order that it was discussed at the workshop, but if you'd like to change things around, that's the kind of direction that we're seeking right now.
I guess I would like to see probably 2 and 3 be higher up than, I mean, certainly I'm not saying safe schools aren't important. I think there's going to be a lot of people in the state fighting for that safe school funding. I think for our district, I mean, if they're all fighting that war, the required local effort makes a bigger impact on our district, I believe, than what we can do with the other. So I don't know what the rest of you think. Mike, if you want to come up, our lobbyist is here, Mr. Horner, if you want to come up to, I don't know if you may want to participate in this conversation with us.
Yeah, so I can comment. I actually think there's wisdom in what you were sharing. I think the way that we could lay it out would be RLE, compression, and Hurricane Maria are 1, 2, and 3, and then, of course, we're supporting safe schools, sure, blah, 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 along with a number of school districts and organizations across the state of Florida. My question, which won't surprise some of you maybe, was number 5. And maybe I'm drawing a blank, I just don't remember discussing that at length, and maybe we did, but that one concerns me because I feel like, same conversation we've had before, as we put forth certain arguments and cases before, whether it be our delegation or the legislature as a whole, I want to make sure that we can win on some things and not undermine our efforts by throwing something else in that's only going to upset the apple cart. And I was reading through some of the specific language in Florida Statute 1013.62 a little bit earlier, and I understand the trigger point is that it's limiting access to local discretionary funds. But again, as I think about strategy, I'm not convinced that having that on there is going to help us, and I think it could essentially hurt us as we're trying to have a bigger conversation where I think we could find some grounds and some headwinds with regard to the RLE compression, and certainly Maria, because that was a significant direct impact to us.
And I think you're closer to probably some of these other districts than I am, but much like I think number 1 is going to be fought by many districts, I think number 5 will be fought by a bunch too. So,
And all will fail.
yeah.
Right.
So,
Right.
I agree 100% with.
And make themselves look bad in the process.
Yeah, I agree 100% where you're coming from on number 5. It's, we can have the greatest things in the world, and it only takes one rotten apple for them to say, in their mind, whether it's a rotten apple or not, to say we're not listening to anything you say. Mike, you've got.
Well, I don't think number 5, you could take it off or leave it on it. I don't think it's super controversial. It's basically a response to the wording maybe isn't as clear as it could be. In 2017, you remember, legislation was passed to take our required local effort and give it to charter schools, and one of our successes last year was to get that out, and I think we just want to keep it out.
Is that what this is?
That's my reading of that, unless I'm Dr.
No,
Pace.
that's right.
That's
So
why
this is just a status quo, leave it alone.
Well, yeah, but that's not to contradict you, Mike, but that's correct, but it's not, because the way that the law is written is that 2018-19 is what it is. 2019-20 now triggers this whole new level that then says not only state allocation, but also any local discretionary. Do you disagree with me?
You're both right in that Clarence, we want to keep the status quo of the 2018-19, and so statute may need some help so that we can maintain the status quo. And I think there will be lots of folks helping. I mean, I don't know there's a big appetite from any school district to go back to that 2017, that 70-69 methodology, and it was hard fought to get it out. So I think my suspicion is that the Senate will want to keep what we did last year, and I don't think it's going to be a tremendous lift.
I think I'd rather be quiet on the issue unless we have to.
But it's not, I mean, I think if it's not on the list, I would take, we talked at the workshop, this year is going to be a lot about playing defense, and if we see that issue come up, even if it's not specific on the list, we're going to work hard to make sure those dollars aren't.
It's a back pocket list, not the.
But it's not, it's not. The two stretch goals on here are really 2 and 4. I mean, those are tough lifts. So I don't want to create any expectation that we're gonna make that happen. Those are stretch goals.
At the just so y'all know, we had the Central Florida School Board Coalition meeting yesterday, and this was a topic of conversation among that whole group. So
The RLE.
The RLE. It is on people. It started finally getting on people's minds. If you'll let us have our money, and let us recover and let us grow back with the property values, we'll be okay. Well, and it's coming from, and Dr. Pace, you were there, correct me if you disagree with me, it's coming from a position of they're not going to add very much to our per pupil, so let us just get what should be coming to it based on our recovery, on our property value recovery to help us get there.
Right. So, Board, I would submit that RLE be number 1, compression be number 2, Hurricane Maria be number 3, and that what is now number 1, the safe schools, becomes our addition to, not necessarily our number 4, but our sub-point to our top 3 goals, which would be those 3 that I've outlined, and that what's currently number 5 be dropped from our priority list. But obviously, Mike knows what it is we desire and what's in the background. And there's going to be other entities, including our state organization, having that conversation as well. I don't want to undermine our argument on things that we may be able to at least raise a legitimate conversation on by shutting the door with something that we know we won't get anywhere on.
Dr. Pace, you had a comment?
I just wanted to remind the board that OLA's priorities remain. That's the collective group between the Osceola County, the school board, and the 2 cities. The city of Kissimmee is not full in this time.
I think the city of Kissimmee had a workshop, and I think they've come up with a way to be in, is my
Okay.
understanding. We could go through the gymnastics,
it's
how they got
kind of
there, but
going
yes,
through a little bit of turmoil there.
Is going to be in.
I think everybody understands the value of having all four groups together, but there was some dissension among the prior council. Anyway, they're still working through that issue. But as of right now, the priorities that Olay had designated would be funding for Bridge to support the Neo City area and the impact that it would have on everybody. As a school district, we were looking at the Safe Schools piece because that's something that impacts both the county and the city governments as well. And then the city of St. Cloud is seeking funding to support their economic development efforts, which would include a potential expansion of OTEC St. Cloud to include a welding technology program. So a little different from what the Valencia program is at Advanced Manufacturing, more of an industrial welding program that we believe would be a natural fit for this community and the talent pipeline needs that are there, that the city of St. Cloud and Olay would come behind and support.
That's great. And what about the city of Kissimmee? Do they not have a priority yet? That's in
Not right now.
When I wasn't at the late meetings, but I learned about all the shenanigans. So when they were setting the priorities, Kissimmee wasn't sure. They were kind of hokey pokey to know whether the foot was in or out. I think they're going to be in, and I would suspect by the time it's all done, they will have a priority on there.
Okay.
But for Kissimmee, I mean, Bridge is huge for those guys, so I suspect that they would consider Bridge to be their priority as well. Not to speak for the city of Kissimmee.
The only other answer I need, sir, is who from the board is going to be at the event on Thursday to present the board's legislative priorities. We'll have the document ready once I have your final direction, but
Sounds like you'll be representing the school board.
Are you
I'm happy to do so.
You okay doing
I am
that?
planning to be there.
I think I had asked for that day to come in early. I don't know that I should be the person to present because I'm the newest, but I was already planning on being there.
I'm happy to be there on behalf of the board. I will be there on behalf of the board, and I'm happy to present and introduce Ms. Castillo as our newest board member.
Maybe I can rearrange too and get there. I'm supposed
And
to be
it-
in
And just so
town.
you guys, I'm trying to be there, but I'm on the board of directors for the Florida School Board Insurance Trust, and we have all of our statewide meetings happening this week as well on that, so I'm in conflict.
I was planning on being there. I mean, I'll just verify with work to make sure I don't have any classes. So I'm happy to represent the board, of course, obviously. Just brief me and we'll get it done.
Mr. Chairman, I think Ms. Castillo would be a great addition. They not that they're tired of seeing your faces, but it's nice to get a fresh face in front of the delegation, and I think that there could be some real value for Dr. Pace to kind of go through the nuts and bolts and have Ms. Castillo kind of make the pitch. Would be a great play.
I can assure you, Ms. Castillo was a rock star in her taping for State of Education.
Well, I didn't want to brag, but
Okay. I don't know, do we need a consensus on that reprioritization of?
I'm good with Mr. Weissner's.
I'm good with
reorg.
I'm good with it. I'm good with that.
All right, we'll go
I think
forward.
that's all we need. I don't think we need a.
We'll go forth.
Are you okay with that, Ms. Castillo? With the reordering?
yeah, the reordering is fine. Thank you.
Okay. The board, bringing us to the end here, do we have any comments? Ms. Castillo, start with you again.
No comments. It's been a great eye-opening experience today with a lot of great information. But I did want to say earlier, I guess when we were talking about our graduation rate, one thing that came to mind is just to kind of put into perspective where we are, you know, with my own experience. When I was going to high school, the conversations that I'm having with my daughter about where she's going to school were not happening because that is not where we were in Osceola County. I was thinking about where am I going to go to work? I had no idea what I wanted to do. It's a shift, right? We have a culture of excellence now, and it's definitely something that I see with my daughter and her friends. her conversations are very targeted as to where she wants to go to school, as well as her friends, and that's really a testament to the great job that we're doing here as a school district. So thank you as a parent for really focusing our students.
Well said, Ms. Castillo.
Mr. Soto, Mr. Booth?
No, I'm good.
Thank you.
Vice Chair? Dr. Pace?
We have our student.
I know.
Okay.
I'm good. He's next. Somebody gives this agenda that has an order on it, and I follow this order sometimes. And we have our student representative, Matt, from Celebration. Do you have any comments or any thoughts or anything you'd like to share with it?
Sure. First off, I'd just like to thank the school board for allowing me to have this opportunity. Thus far, it's been
Two, right?
Yeah, this is my second meeting. I'll be here, and I'm looking forward to coming to the third meeting. But so far, it's been extremely welcoming. Everybody's just been eager to see me. It's been awesome. I've been learning the rules and the ropes here, so it's been an eye-opening experience, and it's really cool that the school board allows a student to sit in. I think that's really cool, and to be that student here is really awesome.
Well, I'm glad you're here. We're glad you have one more meeting. The third meeting is when we have a fight.
Is there, by the way, you dress very sharp, very professional. Just want to commend you.
I like that tie.
Was there anything that, that we discussed or that was brought forth, informational, that you want to ask about a little bit more?
By the way, we always just say no to him, and you're welcome to do the same.
You could say no. I just want to make sure that if there was something that was still like, what exactly happened here or there?
Right. No, I think I'm pretty good. Mr. Weishauer's been doing a great job explaining everything to me, going through the agenda and explaining everything. So
We will have a different seating order.
Well, that's good.
Let the indoctrination begin.
Well, now that I know that Tim's taking that role, I don't need to, speculate anything.
We're glad you're here. We like the experience.
thank you for having me.
I can tell you he's not going to UC Berkeley.
That's right.
You should recommend that book. You should recommend that book.
Yeah, he does that one.
If there's nothing else, Matt, we're going to end with you. If there's nothing else, we will stand adjourned.
All right.
And I did.